Welcome, everybody, to the third Business Brilliance Speaker event. This is a true pleasure to be holding this at a location that is not Penn or Columbia. And this is now just clear evidence of our expansion across the nation at these world's top institutions by uniting the driven students that attend each of these schools. So essentially, just a quick rundown on what Business Brilliance is essentially we are a high-value student networking community that is uniting driven and ambitious students at top schools around the world for the sole purpose of accelerating their path to success by pretty much aggregating their diverse perspectives and exposing them to opportunities that they wouldn't typically receive. And so what our main mission is for Business Brilliance is to compound knowledge, wealth, and opportunity through this community of students, whilst simultaneously revolutionizing the global education system by bridging the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application, and by bridging the gap between the geographical boundaries that each of these schools have in place currently. So with that being said, Business Brilliance is the world's first student networking community to consistently promote interconnectivity and interactivity comfortably between top students at these top schools around the world. And currently, we're recognized across the Ivy League, top 20 institutions in the US, and we are already expanded into the United Kingdom into over 5 different universities, including Oxford, London School of Economics, Cambridge, University of York, and a couple others. But our next efforts when it comes to expansion are expanding into China, India, Australia, Canada, Mexico, and Italy. So as far as Business Brilliance goes, we're here to unite students who are destined for success, and we're here to provide them with that opportunity. So yeah, that's Business Brilliance. And I'm the founder, Shane Gardner, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you all.
This goes to UPenn. He's a sophomore. He started this when he was a freshman. So I would like to commend him for his effort. He created partnerships with 2 private equity firms, one of them that focuses on real estate. And because of that, we have secured funding for many years to come, just because of the way in which he has pitched our mission to companies. So yeah, very proud of him. I would like to start this event by talking a little bit about HAMA. We have partnered with Business Brilliance to create this event. And I would think that the best person to talk about HAMA would be Professor Barney here. Would you like to introduce HAMA and what our vision is?
Sure. It's a pleasure to speak with everyone today. My name is Jean Barney. I'm a professor over at the Nolan School of Hotel Administration here at Cornell. I am also a member of HAMA, and HAMA is the Hospitality Asset Management Association. It is a professional organization of hotel asset managers. It is a global organization with that was founded in the US but has chapters globally. And one of the missions of HAMA is education. And they provide many different types of education to the members, but also HAMA has a mission to reach down into the universities and support education regarding asset management. And we have our club here at Cornell, and we have many HAMA members who are Cornell alumni, and they support through guest speaking. They have every year an annual student case competition, which is very exciting and interesting. And they're a great organization to help with career growth as well. So students can learn about it while they're here on campus, and then as they enter the professional world, they can become members themselves.
Definitely. So we're going to start with introductions. We can start from this side and then make our way over there. We have 3 people that are all professors and have amazing backgrounds here at Cornell and in the outer world.
Hi, so my name is Suzanne Laney Charles. I'm an associate professor in city and regional planning and in real estate at Cornell. I'm also the director of graduate studies for real estate, and I'm the former acting director of the still relatively new Rebecca Department of Real Estate. How extensive do you want to
Very extensive. Yeah, very extensive.
I've been at Cornell since 2015. Prior to that, I taught at Northeastern University in Boston and the University of Michigan. But prior to that, teaching and it is a second career for me. My first career was being an architect. So I grew up sorry, there's a gnat flying right here. I grew up wanting to be an architect. I went to undergraduate and graduate school for architecture. I became a licensed architect, and I practiced for 12 years. And I rose up, as you would do with in an architecture firm, to be vice president of Booth Hanson Associates, a medium-sized architecture firm in Chicago. And in my work there, I was working with our developer clients primarily. I was leading a studio that focused on multifamily housing, working with developers. And through that process, I became more and more interested in what the developers were thinking, their calculus, because as an architect, I apologize to the architects who may be hearing this, we were responsive. We were providing a service to our clients, and they asked us to do something, and we applied our creativity, but we did it. And wasn't the leeway that I experienced in school of being the mastermind designer, right? I mean, we were responding to some things we disagreed with. And I became more and more interested in what that calculus, what was affecting why the developer was pushing us to do certain things as the architect, or why they were approaching a project in a certain way. So I went back to school. I intended to go back to school and get a degree in real estate, a master's degree, and then go back to practice architecture. I did that. I became interested in real estate. I extended my stay in grad school to a doctorate. I still thought I might go back to consulting, and I ended up there were real estate there were jobs, so I went the tenure track route to where I am now.
Sure. My name is Chris Demester. I'm a professor of practice here at Cornell in the Rebecca Department of Real Estate. I think I was Zane's first hire. I come from an industry background, and for the last 17, 18 years, I've been working in private equity real estate, primarily in the asset management and investment management arena, but covering all asset classes and all investment types, mainly for opportunistic funds at Citibank, at Apollo, and at Oaktree, with a very strong slant to Europe and Asia. So with limited actual investment expertise here in the US. So though I did graduate from the Department of Real Estate in Cornell in 2007. So this is my return to give back to the program that gave me so much in terms of my career in Europe and in Asia.
For that.
Sure. Again, Jean Varney, I'm the deputy area coordinator for the information technology and for operations technology and information management area, which is an area that has some of our real estate professors in it. I'm actually a graduate of the School of Hotel Administration, worked in the hospitality industry for many years in many different capacities. One of my later career opportunities was to be a professional asset manager for over a decade with a large REIT, and then moved into some sustainability work, and then found my way back to Cornell. And so I've been there for over 12 years. So my specialty areas are asset management, sustainability, as well as building management or the built environment.
And you touched a little bit upon this, but if you could summarize in just maybe 3 sentences the reason why you decided to become a professor. You touched a little bit upon this as well, but maybe like 3 main reasons why you decided to become a professor. For example, you said give back. I believe you said something similar as well. We could go from this side.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, my career isn't necessarily something I would have. I think we can all say this, like planned from the start, right? It's like you're presented with opportunities, make certain decisions. So I didn't start out wanting to be a professor, really. Like I said, I wanted to be an architect. But after going back to school, getting a doctorate, I saw for one, benefits to this life of being a professor, of course, but also this to be able to in my case, conduct my research, share that research, share continually learn and share that with students. Matthews, this is a class of mine, and I taught that class now since 2015 every fall, and every time it's different, and I'm able to kind of weave into current topics or elements of my research and others. So I find that really personally intellectually stimulating and really fun to kind of to share that with students.
And so my journey is also, it's a very convoluted way to have got here. I originally started off in agriculture. So I did a family farm in Australia, moved into management consultancy in agriculture, working for a consultancy firm and then the Federal Minister for Agriculture, before moving to Canada and joining a grain trading company, which I then brought back to Australia and worked in commodities trading and logistics development, and then came to Cornell to make my career change into real estate. So I think Cornell and the programs here, and most of the master's programs that are available in the US, provide a great springboard for people to make those career changes. And I got a lot out of it, which is why I'm very keen to give back. One of the aspects of it that I really actually am enjoying is you get a chance to step back. And we were so busy in industry that you sometimes forgot what you'd learnt and or how it was properly applied. So for the last 12 months here, giving me a chance to reflect on that, but also to learn a lot of new things. I think Matthews is in my class as well. So I think we spoke this morning about aspects of a guest lecturer that shed a lot new light onto a topic area that I previously thought I'd known quite well, but there's a lot of different avenues and angles. So constantly learning and improving to help the students move forward.
Well, I echo that as well. This was an unintended, career landing spot, but a very welcome one. As I mentioned, I was a graduate of the school. I'm actually a native of Ithaca, so I was born and raised here. Went to the hotel school, left, and thought I'd never live here again. I was off to the big cities doing all of my professional career work. But while I was out there doing all of that work, I always came back. I did have family in the area, but I always came back to the hotel school, and I was always a guest lecturer. I came back we have this event called Hotel Ezra Cornell. I was a mentor to students. I interviewed, my companies hired students. I would see professors at professional conferences. So I was just always connected to the school. And then there was a unique opportunity with all of my crazy, wide variety of experiences to come back to a very unique niche of what I teach. It was facilities management and sustainability. And there was a growing desire for expansion of the sustainability curriculum in the school. And through the networking, the opportunity came up, and I was, incredibly lucky to find my way back here. So, and I will say it may sound like, we had all of these different experiences, but Cornell has such a commitment to bringing the industry back into the classroom and bringing real applicable learnings, not just theory, into the classroom. And they have amazing resources for the students, but also for us as well to, sharpen our toolkit, and become, better professors, better instructors. And it's, one of those opportunities that for anyone that's listening might think, oh, I could never do that because that was me, how could I possibly ever do that? But they have all of the support and everything that you need. So it's really, a desire to come back in and connect with the students and bring all of those crazy mistakes that you've made and, help the students put theory into reality.
Yes, and I would love to emphasize the interdisciplinary nature of learning here at Cornell. Even in real estate, and even in this room, we have so many different disciplines that have to do with real estate. Professor Varney teaches a class in asset management, hospitality asset management, but she also teaches a class in facilities. Professor Dimester has taught a private equity real estate class this semester, and next semester you will teach an asset and portfolio management class in real estate. And Professor Charles, you taught a class in affordable housing and also in the built environment. So definitely I would like to echo that. So one of the main values, core values of Business Brilliance is ethics and integrity. And that was one of the topics that we're going to cover today. So I would love to ask each one of you if you could tell a story just from your experience, maybe in academia, maybe in the industry, of a time when ethics and integrity had to do with decision making, or when maybe there were different incentives. We talked a lot about perverse incentives in the real estate private equity class. Also today, you mentioned the story. I would love if you could tell me a story of times when there were two different parties. They wanted something different, and how you used ethics to navigate those decisions.
Okay.
It could be as detailed as you want. We have a lot of time, so that can be as detailed as possible.
So I was thinking about a few case studies before we came in, just trying to work out which one might be suitable for that phrasing of that topic. So I think, I mean, you did mention in sort of private equity, the fiduciary duties of the GPs, of the investment managers to the investment pool is an incredibly important component. Not only getting the alignments of interest, but ensuring that preservation of trust exists there. But there is areas where that trust can be abused, and there isn't a huge number of guardrails to protect against it in the private markets. So yeah, I've had several instances where I've been conflicted between the motivations and the desires of the investment managers, of the GPs, and that of the LPs. The one thing I would say is, particularly for the younger people in the audience, is integrity is your currency. So when you're in these industries and you're dealing with senior people that are making some decisions that may not necessarily fulfill the fiduciary duties, don't be afraid to speak up, because it is your integrity that is your currency. But it is a very difficult thing to do when you've got senior, experienced people around you that are making decisions that, for reasons that they may not or should not have been making certain types of decisions. Not all GPs put the LPs above themselves, and I've seen that in a number of situations across the industry over my career. Not necessarily my employers, but joint venture partners and other parties in those investment structures. It is a very difficult thing to stand up for. I think I shared an example with the class that I wasn't probably knowledgeable or experienced enough to stop a particular situation from occurring, or where those conflicts were clearly evident. But as you get older and you learn more about your self-worth and your integrity, then I think I developed that skill set over a period of time. So I mean, it's not really a specific example, because I think I can't really talk about it because of commercial and confidence reasons. But yeah, I would say that within the industry segment that I worked in, it's making sure that those fiduciary duty lines are a line in the sand, because you do not want to be painted with a brush, and your reputation is everything.
And we, for example, had a speaker in the class who wouldn't invest in single-family rental because he believed that could be harmful for the market. That's another example.
Yeah, and I was going to raise that exact, because I
Really?
didn't know about that. Is when you mentioned fiduciary duty. So, if you look at single-family rental REITs, for example, they have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders, right? They don't have a direct duty to the neighborhoods in which they invest. So, I come from the Department of City and Regional Planning, so I feel like I have to say this. There are there are negative effects of certain types of investment. Real estate investment may be very profitable investment. Single family rentals is one. I write on this. Single family rentals. Many people, myself included, have researched this and found that the institutional investors, their investment in neighborhoods may to negative outcomes for the people who live there. So it's a thorny question, right? I mean, if you can speak to this, Chris, you're working in the firm and you're working for you have a duty to your investors. What sort of duty do you have to the neighborhoods, to society at large? Right. I think
ESG is becoming a very very important topic across all markets and increasingly in private markets as well.
The social is hard to quantify though, right?
Social is very difficult to quantify. But the taxonomy of that is developing, and more so in Australasia and Europe. The investor base is demanding it. It is coming in the US.
That was going to be my example, actually, related to ESG and sustainability and ethics in real estate, and where we sit in the United States. That in working with many companies in the past, and as we have evolved in the US towards more transparency, let us say that with our ESG or sustainability activities, it's been a little bit more of a push than it has been, people actually engaging and walking into the process. I was going to talk about an example that I had with a very senior member of a company, and we were discussing sustainability initiatives and moving them forward and growing the initiatives in the company. And the very senior executive looked me straight in the eye and said, well, our shareholders haven't really brought it up, so I don't think that's a direction we're going to go in right now. And that would be my message to you all. Just because you don't have to doesn't mean you shouldn't. And that was, of course, profoundly disappointing to me at the time. But it was speaking to, the dollar, the pressure, sometimes, especially for public companies, for shareholder returns, and not and where sometimes executives or decision makers in companies not having the vision for the holistic view of the health of the corporation, their stakeholders. And we know the stakeholders go well beyond the shareholders, the employees, the neighborhoods, the communities, the environment. We can really expand on that, and that it is important to, have whatever, degree to that moral compass that you have for what you feel are the right decisions, not necessarily, what may be a more practical business decision, if you will.
And today you mentioned two different examples in class, or I mentioned one of them. One of them had to do with what we talked about in the first part of the built environment class, when we were talking about gentrification and how it was kind of born in the US. And the second example was about that case competition. If you could touch upon those examples.
In the past, have worked with students who undertake the ULI Urban Land Institute Hines Urban Design Competition. It's a really great competition, multidisciplinary teams for graduate students, unfortunately only. But each team of 5 students must be about 3 different disciplines. So it's really a great learning opportunity for the students. And I've worked with students in different universities, and I'm recalling one. It was, and in fact, Cornell has won that competition in the past. And actually, that's a good point, because winners of the competition, they win $50,000. So there's and the finalists get $10,000. So there's some money at stake here. But the story I talked with Matthews this morning about is that the competition required 1 year, every year the competition, it has certain requirements, housing, different mixes. And one, it required an SRO. An SRO is a single room occupancy building. It houses it's more affordable, low-income housing in most cases. And the competition brief required an SRO as part of this project. And the students had this big site they could do with whatever they wanted, and they were designing it. And they came up with this idea that they would stick the required SRO kind of off to actually under a freeway overpass off to the side. And, I initially said, well, why, and again, I'm a professor of urban planning, and these are planners, right? We talk about in class, we talk quite a bit about equity and justice and planning. And, Cornell is known for its history of progressive planning, so why did you stick it over there when you can put it anywhere? And the students kind of, it was a knee-jerk reaction, right? It was a knee-jerk to, what would industry do, right? Not thinking what's most profitable, what's so they kind of that desire to win the $50,000 maybe, or the just kind of like defaulting back to what like higher ups would have done, right? Is kind of stick it off to the side and marginalize it. So I thought that was interesting, and I would caution, or not caution, I would just tell you guys, don't lose on to those ideals that we talk about in school so quickly. It's like when the rubber hit the road there, it was like, ideals aside, like
we're gonna win this,
think is most profitable, right? And yeah, so that was just that. And then there was another example with also with affordable housing. When we talk in class, we talk about creating mixed income neighborhoods, creating with the
5-minute cities.
and those sorts of things. I would tell you guys to remember to hold on to those ideals when it maybe becomes a little difficult in practice, right? Back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and this everything that has to do with ESG is even expanding out to countries in South America. I'm from South America, and that didn't used to be a thing many years ago. That used to be the very last thought, or not even a thought in the mind of the developers in South America. However, we had a speaker in the distinguished at DSS, that stands for Distinguished Speakers Series, last Thursday or a couple of Thursdays ago. He is the owner of Territoria. Territoria is a developer firm in Chile. I think he's been here before, and they have created a wonderful mixed-use development, many wonderful mixed-use developments in Chile that are, the only way in which I could describe it is perfectly sustainable, or have a very high ESG achievements, just because they are 5-minute cities where people don't need to travel far to get every service they would need, but also they have amazing connections with public transportation. They have generated like a metro station there. They have accommodations for bikes, not just like a bike rack where you can just park your bike, but they have like a kind of a city for bikes inside of the building where you could like actually have a good experience with your bike and not just have to like hide it somewhere. And they're trying to do something that is not well known in Chile. They're trying to actually incentivize people to stop using their cars, walk more, being a little more sustainable, saving energy. There's a lot of very interesting things in those buildings that have to do with the conservation of energy, even with with the conservation of energy. So that's something that we're definitely interested in. My follow-up question will have to do with actually, I'm gonna just read the list. We have some questions from the audience.
By the way, the people you spoke of, they're also involved with an architecture studio in Cornell.
Oh.
So there are they're undergrads. They're working on a design of a repurposing of buildings in Chile with that architect, with that developer who's very forward thinking.
Yeah, and he got his inspiration from actually traveling the world, visiting Manila, visiting places in Italy. He grabbed what he thought were the best things of each one of those retail spaces, and his feat was to build a building that has, I believe, is around 7 floors of retail, which is something that is very unheard of. Even Related tried to do something like that in Hudson Yards. It didn't work out. The last, I think they tried to do like 6 floors of retail around there, 7 floors of retail. The upper three floors are gonna have to be repurposed for something else, probably office, just because not many people will go up there. People will usually stay in the first, second floor, maybe third. But the way that this developer did it, he basically did like a kind of mountain in which there are three levels that are all of them are ground level, just because one of them is connected to the subway, another one is connected to the bus and to the bikes and to the cars, and the other one is the actual like ground level. But he has like three levels that are all of them ground up. Ground level, and he stacks them in a way which is just amazing, especially from South America. But yeah, my next question has to do with the trends that are going on in the real estate market as of now. Obviously, this is a very diverse panel with many different perspectives. So, for example, we could go from here to here, and some of the trends I would like you to talk about is maybe some trends that you have researched recently. This could be anything from, for example, you have researched a conversion from office to residential. In class, we talk a lot about the effect of rising interest rates in the markets, what those could do for capital raising, what those could do for the funds that are going to be generated in the future. And you also teach a class in sustainable development. Maybe there are some trends there that we touch upon or emphasize.
We're still going this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, office to residential conversions. I don't think a day goes by that I don't like on NPR or on different media hear a comment about office to residential conversions. And it's really compelling. It's a really compelling idea because we have too much office, right? You can correct me on that. Because we have a lot of office space that with work from home and post-pandemic and everything, but maybe that we have too much office space. And in many cities, we have too little housing, making housing unaffordable. So that sounds like a great idea. But that can be a great idea. In class, we talk about types of buildings that are better for conversions, easier to convert to residential. A lot of it has to do with the shape of the building and some really simple ideas like light and ventilation. But many buildings, particularly those built in the post-World War II era in the US in 70s, 80s, 90s, are not great candidates. They're for many reasons. Now, there's an article or two articles on Cornell S.C. Johnson College of Business website. The first one talks about the market aspects, and two faculty members, Peter Liu and Crocker Liu, are interviewed in that, and I was interviewed for the second one that talked about the built form. So what I just said, some buildings, particularly older buildings, like in the U.S., late 19th, early 20th century buildings, great, right? Really easy to convert. But many aren't. And there have been studies, not that I did, other people's studies that show like really a small percentage of existing office buildings are great candidates for conversion. Mm-hmm. In a nutshell, it's because their floor plates are too big and you can't get light in there. And
at least you do a hole in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways that could make it more expensive. So that's a trend that every time I hear it, I just like scream at the radio. What's like our expectations of what we can get out of
the hotels to convert into it
would be perfect conversions. Yeah. I mean, some of those buildings I talked about in class, older office buildings from for example, like in downtown Chicago in the late 19th century, they're converted into hotels, some of them, mm-hmm. and into residential. And for the same reason, the shape of the building for hotel and residential works very well.
Yep.
But offices, you can have bigger floor. Actually, mm-hmm. companies want bigger floor plates, and that's sometimes. So that's a trend that everybody keeps talking about. I hope it. There's another trend. These are trends that drive me crazy, not good ones. Another one is using. This is kind of passing a little bit, but talking about using shipping containers for
modular housing. I'm gonna read your paper on that.
We did a final project in the first part of the class.
And also the capacity review.
Yeah, of course. Shipping containers aren't great conversions into residential, but modular could be. Modular, thinking about modular housing. These are IS-study housing, and these are all ideas that are trying to chip away at the problem of housing affordability. Mm-hmm. In major cities in the US or around the world, and how can we make housing cheaper? or how can we find land to build it?
And that was going to be my next question. Before we talk about the other trends, if you had to find a way in which we could increase the supply of affordable housing in the US in many different markets, what do you think the solution would be? That's like the $1 million question, but do you think it should come from repositioning of assets that already exist? Do you think that we would need more development? How could we make sure that the firms that are investing in the new developments not do it market rate, but do it affordable? Like, do we do 80-20 incentives, tax incentive to the government? What are the routes or strategies that you
I
would
will keep
suggest?
this brief because this could monopolize this whole conversation, and I want to hear the more interesting conversation these guys have. But for housing, there's a big debate right now between YIMBY and NIMBY. Yes, in my backyard, not in my backyard. That kind of unfortunately gets reduced down to increasing supply through market rate development, which I think reasonable people in between these two polar sides would say we need more construction of housing, but the market as it exists in the US right now will not supply enough low income housing, so below market rate. And so we do need, and we need to not only increase supply, but building luxury units won't filter down, in my opinion, won't filter down to what we need. So we need incentives to kickstart for-profit developers to build below market housing. So that could be, many cities, New York, there's low-income housing tax credit at the federal level in the US. There are local incentives. There are that run the gamut to help push that along. But and I would also contend, a little bit controversial, but I would contend that we need public housing. We need increased public housing in the US. What's called social housing in other places, but we need across the board. But we need to think about producing housing for people of a range of incomes.
So I might change tack if we're talking about trends. So in sort of my arena, I think probably one of the main trends that has happened since the global financial crisis and continues to accelerate is the rise of the alternative asset management companies, the Blackstones, the Macquaries, the Brookfields, the Apollos, and we're starting to see very much a shift away from commercial banks and investment banks as the money managers in the market. And the size, the sheer volume of capital that these firms are now managing and deploying, is unprecedented. Blackstone hit $1 trillion under management earlier this year. And a lot of the investment structures that they operate for this quantum of capital tend to be very short-natured. So there's been a big rise in recapitalizations and continuity funds of how these capital and these assets are then recycled back into the existing pool of investors. And it's a very interesting area in that, and it's evolving quite quickly. But just the sheer volume of capital that's coming into the private markets, and increasingly so through debt instruments in the last 2 to 3 years, which is accelerating now as the main source of liquidity that's going to become available to address the recapitalization that's going to be required in the current market with the distressed assets that are particularly the office assets, which are filtering through the market today. So that's what I would sort of highlight as one of the major trends in the area.
What do you think that the repercussions of this would be in the next, well, you touched a little bit upon this, but on the next 20 years, like if we wanted to extend it a little bit more towards the future, how do you think that this would shape the way in which people invest in real estate? Not people, but entities, governments, sovereign wealth funds. Like if you had to just shorten it to maybe a couple sentences, how do you think this would change the dynamics?
Well, it's certainly concentrating the capital within a few designated managers. There are a lot of managers there, but the concentration levels are continuing to rise, and the quantum of capital in these mega funds is continuing to rise. So what are the consequences of that? I think there is limitations to how they can deploy that quantum capital. And how they can manage it efficiently. I can't foresee any structural risks with the constructs. But I think the SEC is taking a lot more interest, and there is concern about, where there may be structural risks within these asset classes. So who knows? I mean, when you're at the top of the mountain, sometimes there's only one way down, but
Yeah.
we hope not.
Okay, so taking it from the sustainable development lens, there are a few trends. Many of them are very positive, actually. I'll sort of hop onto the government involvement trend that you were talking about with affordable housing. There has been an increase in government, both regulations from a code perspective and a building requirement or infrastructure perspective, where there are cities that are requiring green certifications or different levels of environmental performance for the buildings that they're building. But there's also an increase in grant money, in incentives, tax incentives, and for developers to try to pull forward permitting, expediting permitting, things like that are very beneficial for green projects, if you will, for development. That's, across the board. Also, I would say too, that for developers that engage in discussions with manufacturers, and for the service providers like designers and architects and engineers, there are some amazing advancements coming through in technology, efficiencies with, building systems, with materials. I talk to the manufacturer community often, actually, and there's a little bit of frustration with some of the manufacturers. We have the product, they're not asking for it, or they aren't buying it. And there used to be this perception of anything green is more expensive, and that's just simply not the case anymore. We've come so far with the manufacturing technologies, with the ability to manipulate materials and recycle materials, whatever it might be. So, that trend of technology, I feel like, as developers or as building managers, we need to be more proactive in asking for that. But the trend for the manufacturers to have more of these better systems, better technologies, more efficient, greener materials or cleaner materials, it's there, and it's getting better every day. And I think also too, this was brought up, the customer demand for ESG, or greener spaces, more efficient spaces, just and maybe, even from an ethical perspective, many more companies are, putting ESG in the C-suite as well. And they're looking for environments for their employees that are in these buildings that are LEED certified or Green Globes or whatever they might be, some sort of green clean certification. And there are sort of two trends that sort of work with that. One, I believe that there is a certain cachet to it now today, which, didn't exist even probably as much, 7-8 years ago. But that is considered a higher end or a better environment for their employees. And in many cases it is. I will also hop onto my building management, side, saying you have to manage it well. You could build it great, but if you don't have great building managers, you're going to have inefficiencies, and you're going to have poor, indoor air quality, everything else that you've worked so hard to build. So, excellent building management is crucial. But kind of the final trend I see that tags along with maybe these greener, cleaner environments that companies are looking for to house their, employees or their offices, or even their, employees as they travel into hotels, is there's a perceived and likely a realistic link between sustainable environments and wellness. And so I think that's one of the reasons why there is so much more consumer demand, is the perception that the sustainable product is better for me, it is healthier for me. And in many cases, that is absolutely true. And so as we're sort of evolving as consumers, and there's more and more education out there, and information is so available to anyone today, that there is more demand from the individual level, which sort of bubbles up into companies wanting to, as companies compete for the best talent and the highest, level of talent, they're trying to, up their game with things like the office space that they're working in, the food that's available in the employee cafeteria, all of those, buying local, supporting local communities, community service, all of that, it sort of kind of gets, bundled together. That link between individual wellness and, strong ESG programs is definitely growing, and there is more demand for it.
And this is the last question that we have for today, and it's going to be about two main things. One is passion and how to find it. So I can tell just by being in each one of your classes. I have taken two classes with Professor Barney. I have taken classes. USA. Just one moment.
Excuse me, just 1 second.
So I can tell by being in each one of your classes that you're very passionate, not only about what you did in the industry, but also what you're teaching right now. You definitely exude that passion. So I would like to, the first question is, for the people in the audience, what are some of your recommendations, advice for people that are generally interested maybe in just real estate, broader real estate area, or the broader finance area, or the built environment area, the broader markets area or economics. So what are some of your recommendations for those people to kind of narrow down their interest or find what they are passionate about? A lot of people have mentioned like coffee chatting with different people, going to different events. But what has been your experience? How did you find your passion? And the second part of the question is a little bit more about advice about basically what the people in the audience really want to know. What is some of your advice for them to start a career? For them to get their first job, get their foot in the door? What do you, from your perspective, what are some young people missing out on when they apply to internships or when they apply to jobs? What is something that you wish they knew? Those are two questions. We can start from this end.
Well, we all described our route. I already said I wouldn't. When I was 25, it said I'd be doing this right now. I wouldn't have believed you. I know. So I know we talk all. This isn't going to be a satisfying answer, but oftentimes I'll talk with sophomores and juniors who want to do a certain thing and want to do this thing, and how do I get to that thing? And I would just recommend to kind of leave your, I don't know if this is right career advice or not, but be open to the serendipity of where you might go. I'm really happy I ended up where I am right now. But if you would ask me when I was 12, it would be, I'm going to be an architect and I'm going to design the tallest building and I'm going to, you know what I mean? But I'm really happy that things this way. And I was kind of at certain periods of my life, I was kind of open to take a chance on something else, going back to school at 35. I think leave I was a principal of a firm. I mean, to leave the firm and do something else, and it was a risk, but it was kind of, I don't know. I think maybe we should prepare for having multiple careers through our lives. I'm already
today,
looking
especially.
I mean, maybe there's a third one for me. I don't know.
Be open.
Yeah, be open. And what was the other thing you asked?
Advice for them to, what are they missing when they try to find a job, when they try to apply for internships? What is something that you would recommend for them to just maybe, two things: understand a little bit more the real estate market, the financial market, or whatever market they're interested in order for them to find their passion, understand the market a little bit more, but also how to actually convey that they're passionate about those topics in order to get a job or actually be able to start a career, or recommendations to start a career.
It's a little bit hard for me to say because I went through architecture and there's the job you do, which is go work in an architecture firm. So I kind of like followed the trend, but I could say, maybe keep your, I guess I already said this, but kind of keep your mind open for different different things that, different ways that your career might go. And I would say, like, I often tell students, like, going for internships, just try something out. It doesn't have to be you're not making a decision now that you're going to have to stick with necessarily until you're retired, try different things and be open. You might think that you want to go a certain way. I mean, I can attest to that. You might think you want to do this, and then you find out, well, I want to try something else. And I mean, the lifelong learning thing we talk about, but it's so true. It's like that for me, that's what keeps me going is learning new things. And it's actually part of the reason why I switched careers, because like I was doing the same thing and do something else, right? So that's not satisfying advice, like go take this job, right?
Only 3 careers. I'm
Careers.
probably clocking up.
That's true.
So in terms of passion, find something that you find intellectually challenging, and that offers diversity. Right? No one likes being stuck doing the same job forever. And make sure you're in an organization, or you put yourself in an environment where you have good people around you, people you enjoy, because you're going to spend so much time with these people. You really don't want to be spending it with people you don't like. So it is really that, to me, probably the highlight of my career was the last job I had, where I had the ability to shape that team and to lead that team, and to put together a team with diverse skill sets, and diverse personalities, but a team that clicked. And that team environment made it such a pleasure to work for. In terms of getting a leg in and showing, motivation for that passion, I think one of the things people should be very conscious of is always being prepared for that next opportunity, because the markets and the workplaces are changing so rapidly that you don't want to be the person that says, I don't have time to look at that. You want to make sure that you're ahead of the game, that you're on charge of everything that you've got under your wraps. And then when those opportunities come up, be prepared to jump. I was fortunate in my career. I came into it at a time of dislocation with the global financial crisis. I was young. I was cheap. I got given the most incredible opportunity set, and I was prepared to take it. And I think always be willing to learn, and always willing to learn that next thing, and always look at it from a different perspective, because you might think you know it, but until you step back and look at it from someone else's viewpoint, there's always something new to learn.
And you and I both came out of our second stint in academia into a really challenging market, right? I went into academia. You were, students should talk to Chris about, you come out into a bad market, how do you make the best of it? How do you find a job in a situation like that? You came out right before the crisis, right?
I had 5 job offers as I left the university. 4 of those companies didn't exist 6 months later.
Exactly.
I was very fortunate in my choice.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, that sort of actually is a good segue to sort of what I was thinking, that so often we all, students especially, overthink things, and we're always, thinking, well, what's the best job? What should I be getting here? Who's going to give me the most money? What has the most prestige? And so there's it is a stressful time. It is a time of, that is filled with a little bit of anxiety, rightfully so. And it's normal to be nervous, and you should be nervous as you're interviewing, doing all these things. But kind of allow yourself to drop into your gut a little bit more than being in your head, if that makes sense. You know, whether it was the divine universe that helped you pick that one job, but somehow, you know, your intuition led you to, you know, a choice that happened to be amazingly correct, you know. And I feel like if students could take a step back as they're, you know, looking for potential career opportunities and really think about, instead of sort of thinking about where should I be going, where are my friends going, where is everybody else going, what will look good, is stop and just think about yourself. You know, as you're looking at job opportunities, if you get that little, you know, flutter in your stomach about a potential job, that's like a really good sign. That's telling you, oh, this one's jazzing me up, I am interested. And I know this may not sound, again, intuitive either, but what's going to be fun for you? You know, we're all talking about enjoyable work environments. What do I actually want to go to work and do? Not, you know, what do I have to do or what is my job going to require me to do, but what do I actually want to go do? How do I want to contribute to this company? Now, I will allow for the fact that sometimes you have career aspirations where you may need to learn a skill that isn't your favorite first. That's okay. But that should still excite you, because I'm going to earn and learn the skill that's going to get me to where I really want to be. So that's not a negative. That's exciting, right? So it's about, you know, what's, you know, they say, do what's fun and the money will come. And I truly do believe that's true. If you're having fun in what you do, you're going to do so well. You work hard, you're a good employee, you're a good colleague, and you're responsible. And I do say, if you do more than your fair share, it'll be noticed, you know, and I'm not telling you to, you know, stay at work until 10 o'clock at night, but especially in our area, in our very large universe of the hospitality industry, it is so small. You earn your reputation early. When you earn that reputation, and you earn it in your internships too, people will come and find you. And that is my last point, is networking. And I know that for some people, networking is incredibly uncomfortable. I don't want to go to this conference because I don't know anyone. I'm going to stand there, you know, with my club soda and not talk to anyone. And you just, you know, try to find a way to get yourself to be comfortable with that. And one of the best ways is to start with your alumni association, where you're with people who are your people already, and just go to those alumni events, people, you students. Whatever school you're in, you know, whether it's, you know, Cornell's alumni, whether it's Nolan, whether it's architecture, whether it's Dyson, you know, go to all of them. You will meet people, you will network. Those are the people that understand your education, that, you know kind of where you've been, and they relate to you so well that they want to help you. And as far as internships go, I will echo that as well. It doesn't matter if you get the perfect internship. It simply does not. Whatever you're learning, you are learning, and is in your toolbox. So don't worry about not getting the perfect internship. You have to take that work, put it on your resume, and make it sound like you rocked all summer, right? And that you have got these amazing skills. You don't have to do it again. You have experience, right? You can then take that, leverage it to where you want to go next.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful advice. Thank you so much for being here. We will close on that note. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We will take a group picture if possible. Gonna do it on my phone. Thank you, everyone watching. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Great event, Matthews. Great event. Thank you to all the participants as well. This was a truly, truly insightful panel. Thank you so much.